Wagwan, wagwan. Welcome to the DIY Yardie channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. In this video, I'm doing a rear caliper replacement on a 2005 Honda Accord. And it's a replacement and bleeding off the caliper. This is what a caliper looks like. And jumping into it, first thing I always want to say is if you're working on the car, make sure you're using your jack stand. I always use my jack stand and my jack as a extra backup, support. All right, so this is the caliper, what it looks like. It's actually leaking brake fluid. So, it's letting air into the system, making the pedal go to the floor. So this other side caliper was replaced a few months before this one. So now I'm getting to the other side, okay? At the time I did the right caliper, this side wasn't leaking, but it's developed a leak in that short a time, okay? So what I'm doing here is I'm pinching off the brake line. Now what I'm doing is using my vice grip. There's actually like a crimper that's made for doing stuff like this. And using my vice grip, I'm not actually crimping down on the line to shut the flow of the fluid off. I just want to slow the flow of the fluid, so that way the master cylinder doesn't run empty in the meantime while I'm doing this job. Okay, so remember, you don't want to clamp down all the way on this hose because you can collapse that brake hose. You just want to slow the flow of the brake fluid down. And it's a good idea while you're doing this job also to have some brake fluid on hand where you can keep a check on the reservoir, make sure it doesn't run low or dry. All right. So next, what I'm doing here is I'm going to get, this is the brake or park brake cable. I'm going to get that removed. So I just use a big screwdriver, pry down on that lever, and then you just pull the cable or push the cable off. Okay, so push down on the lever. There we go. It just pops right off. All right. So after that, we need a 14 millimeter. And then we're going to get this 14 millimeter pull, and that's the lever, or I guess I'd say the lever that holds the park brake cable. We're going to get that pull and moved out of the way. Now, different people go about this in a different sequence, or this is the way I go about doing it. So everybody has their own system or process in which they go by. This is the way I do it. All right. So got that done. Next I'm going to pull is the caliper bolts. Those are also 14. So I'm using my this is my flexible 14 here, but you can just use a regular 14, 14 socket, 14 wrench. Even the 9/16 will work on there. Okay. We'll get those pulled and moved out of the way. And the caliper should come right off. Okay. So these brakes, I recently replaced. At the time I did the other side caliper, so they're pretty new brake pads, so I'll reuse them. Right now what I'm doing is just getting all the old caliper parts removed. So this next part I'm going to pull, or I'm pulling right now, is called the caliper bracket. That's also 14 millimeters. And the new caliper comes with a bracket. So you get the caliper and bracket, and whenever you buy a new caliper. And asking anybody that find this video helpful to please consider subscribing to my channel. Also to give me a thumbs up and share this video to anyone you think it may help, or might be interested in doing a job like this. I'm kind of new to YouTube, so I'm trying to get my subscribers up and get my channel built up and going. I'd really appreciate it for anyone that takes the time to do that. All right, but like I say, right back into it. All right, so getting these bolts out. This is the new bracket. I'm going to get that removed or separated from the caliper, from the new caliper. And these are also 14 millimeters. These bolts. Okay, we'll get those out of there. I'm going to take that and put it on, bolt it onto the car. And I actually noticed or realized that once I started bolting this part to the car, I realized it was the wrong size for the car. It was a little too big. So luckily the old part was still in good condition, so I had to reuse the old part because the part store was closed at this time, and I couldn't return it to get this part exchanged. So what I did, I just decided to grease up the old part, make sure everything is in good condition and working condition, and use the hardware from the original caliper. Okay. Sometimes, when you're doing these jobs, you have to improvise, or you'll be stuck in a position where you have to wait until you get the part again. Sometimes you can do things to improvise. So, all I have to do is grease up these sliders. Like I said, they're in good condition. Just make sure they're greased up, put them back together. So that way I can, get the job done instead of having this car sitting. Okay. So everything looks good there. So now what I want to do is grease the contacts on my brakes, because you're putting in all new hardware, all the shims, which are the shiny pieces you see there, all the shims, are all new. So you want to put a little grease on the brake pads to make sure they slide back and forth easily on these new parts. And you only put the grease on the moving part of the brake pads, the part that actually sits at the top and the bottom of the brake pad. Those are the only place you need to put the grease. Okay, those are good. Now we're going to get the caliper back in place. And you always want to make sure, see this X or plus has to be in that exact, sitting in that exact position, because on the brake pads there's a little notch that it has to slide onto, and if it's not sitting exactly in that position, then it won't sit firmly on the brake pad. If that plus or X sign is off, it'll be sitting on top of that notch. So you want the notch to go right in the groove of that plus or X sign. All right. I'm going to go ahead and get these tightened. At 14 millimeter. Those tightened. I'm going to get my cable on, my park brake cable. My brake line first of all. Sorry. So the first thing to do is get the bolt in place first to the 14 mm. Make sure that's tight. Just make sure it's, pretty snug. Don't want to break it off. I'm going to need my big screwdriver again. I was trying to do it manually like that, but need something to pry down on it. So pry down on the lever and just pull back, snap it over there. All right, so now we can hook our brake line, brake fluid line. You can get that hooked up. And the bolt for the brake line has a washer, an outer washer and an inner washer. And make sure those are in place. And this is a 11 millimeter bolt. Get that tightened down. So now what I do at this point is I open the bleeder nipple. Then I'm going to remove the pliers and allow the brake fluid, once the reservoir is full, the brake fluid will take a while to come down full the caliper and then start to pour out of the nipple. And you should always make sure, watch the reservoir and add fluid as necessary. Okay, so this is taking a little while, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the pumping method instead, which is I close the nipple, pump the brakes 4 times and hold it down, open. You can see the brake fluid coming up. And at this point, you need, another person to help you, someone to pump while you do the, opening and closing of the nipple. And you close and pump again, another four or 5 times, and hold until you see a nice clear stream, no air bubbles. You close, your brake job is done. You're good to go. This is DIY Yardi. Bless up.